Today's message is for you if you're concerned about the state of greed in the world, a state that isn't new. Human greed is a part of our history and the reality of our own development. However, if you have hopes and dreams that greed and those tendencies are soon to be transcended, this message is for you. I became aware during meditation today of a Romani energy, a woman who was quite young. I would say I'm hearing 24. She was plump and dressed very provocatively. She has bright colors on and a scarf around her head, just a strip of cloth that's kind of like a scarf, but you can see the top of her head. She has long black hair and very clear, beautiful, dark skin, big, huge, beautiful brown eyes, thick eyelashes, and very, very beautiful, very sensual. And I see her dancing through her life. Um, I think she passed because of violence. And I think that violence was something that she encountered because of who she was. She was, as I said, Romani, which in her day, which I think was probably in the early 1900s. But she has a very modern feeling to her. She's very wise beyond her years and advanced, but also has a youthful energy too, interestingly. A youthful, almost immature kind of way of being, but carries this wisdom and this advanced understanding of who she's allowed to be as opposed to what is expected of her. But in her society, what we today call Romani were called gypsies, which is a derogatory term for a relatively large group of people who often were forced to um, ask for money on the streets or busk or sell wares on the streets and were held in contempt because people didn't trust them and assumed that they were thieves, which it may be true that some were. When we're in a state of desperation, we do whatever we can to survive. And that's part of what her message is today. Mariamne is what I'm hearing as her name. Her message is about the need to survive and what we will do in service of that. And it's about the fact that in today's world, greed has a different, almost a different definition than it did in days when more people were desperate. Today, thankfully, a large majority of humans are able to at least feed themselves. We are not in a perfect place, and equality needs to increase, and the potential for comfort needs to be reconsidered. And I acknowledge this, but today we have much more of a chance than we did in Mariamne's day. And she's letting us know that, particularly this week, this feels like a message also just for the collective. There is a shift beginning, a tipping point is being reached in our acceptance of greed in this day and age. So for us, greed today surrounds billionaires and people who hoard and have a lot of money and a lot of power and aren't very generous with that money, at least in our view of things. I suppose we don't know what people do behind closed doors. But then behind that, behind the outrage that often elicits, people also, humans also tend to respect these individuals and actually aspire to being in the same state that they're in. And therein lies the hypocrisy. that we are outraged that there are billionaires who hoard all the money and aren't generous and have all the power and try to push agendas that keep them in their place of power and influence and wealth. And yet, behind that outrage is a desire to be just like them. And that is what Mariamne is pointing to today as a great shift that is beginning to unfold in our human experience. More and more of us are understanding that, in fact, we do not want that. We do not want to be billionaires or even millionaires. We do not want to have more wealth than others so that we have more power than others. What we want is to find a level of comfort, internal harmony and peace, and expansion for the species so that we can ascend and grow into who we really are. And so the honoring of these people who have power and wealth is beginning to diminish, not because of jealousy and outrage at not being able to have what they have, but because of an understanding that what they have is really nothing at all. That material wealth, that material influence is a passing idea that our brains create in order to make sense of what we need to do to survive. In other words, money gets us to a certain point, but it's a creation for balance in survival. And beyond survival, beyond eating, sleeping, procreating, and being under a roof, we don't have need for excess of that. We don't need excess. And more of us are realizing that, so that the worship of people who have managed to find excess in their lives for whatever reason is diminishing. And as that happens, the value we place on what those people represent diminishes. And then we slowly begin to find equality in survival for all. And that's Mariamne's message today. If you are bereft at the greed and the grasping and climbing that you see, take heed and be comforted. We are moving past it. We are. It just takes more of us to breathe, feel, forgive those who hoard, and be grateful if we are, in fact, surviving in a way that allows us to take care of our basic needs, but doesn't require anything else. And the way to start, Mariamne is telling me, materially, is to limit consumption. You don't need a new phone every year. You don't need a new car every few years. You don't need new clothes every week. Most of the things we consume, we don't need. Try to limit that. Try to return to just consuming the things we do need. And that will help push us to the tipping point of equality. And there are many who would listen to this and who would scoff at it and say, why would I want that? I want to be one of those people who has excess. Well, that is their journey and that is okay. But they are moving into the minority. Maybe not soon, but it's happening. Be comforted. If you enjoy my messages, I leave them every day. I create a video every day. So thank you for returning. And again, if you're so inclined, please like and subscribe because it helps me.